Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Northern Kentucky Forum as we take a look at the changing landscape of film and theater. I am Mark Nykirk, the director of the Scripps Howard Center for Civic Engagement at Northern Kentucky University. We are partners with the three public libraries in Northern Kentucky in Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County to bring you the forum to talk about topics and issues that are important in our civic life in the region. So great to be with you this evening, and I think we have a particularly timely topic tonight as we move from into the, maybe the rear view mirror, the life with a mask and life at home, and start to get back out into the community a little bit. And so we'll get a chance to talk about what's happening in film and theater as we move back to something like a normal life in the months ahead, in a summer movie season, perhaps. So thank you for being with us. This is the last of a series of forums that we had scheduled up to now, and the board is now working on the summer schedule and the fall schedule. So please watch our site at nkyforum.org for what's next. We'll be mixing it up a little bit, and both in topics and times a day, including some breakfast cafes that we tried earlier and this season, and also soon we'll try to do this live and in person again. So just stay with us and watch the site and like us on Facebook and stay informed on what's upcoming. We are be together tonight for a little over an hour. We have time for your questions at the end. Please put those in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll monitor those. And we'll remind you from time to time that that's available. So just think about what your questions are, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. We have an excellent panel with us tonight, and I'm going to let our moderator, Margaret McGurk, do the introductions on that. Margaret, as you all probably know, not Margaret, the byline, our longtime guide in the Cincinnati Enquirer, the what films to see. And Margaret, I'm interested to know what I need to go see this summer. She is still a freelance writer and hasn't really given up the old gig, just maybe not under the same masthead so much anymore. But thanks for all your contributions to the community and being our guide to the theater, and also again tonight. And Margaret, I'll give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That's a very nice introduction. I'm going to keep that, you don't mind. I really have been looking forward to this particular evening because I know a number of people on this panel, and the ones I have not met before, I'm really happy to meet. So let's start just randomly with, we're going to start, I'm sorry, Michael. We're going to start with Michael Hatton, who is based at Northern Kentucky University, where he heads the theater program. I think I got that right. Why don't you tell us yourself, Michael?
Hi, Margaret. Good evening. Well, hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Michael Hatton. I'm the head of the theater and dance program in the School of the Arts at Northern Kentucky University. And it's been quite an interesting year for all of us, of course, as artists. And so very excited to join this conversation tonight and share some of the things that we have done to pivot and some of the things we're excited about for the future that we have learned and explored during this past year.
All right, thank you very much. And now can we go to Kristen Schlottman from Film Cincinnati, which is our regional, well, certainly Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Film Commission, who help bring in outside productions to come here and spend a lot of money.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to being with all of you this evening. And the Film Commission has been around in the region since 1987. So we're a long-standing nonprofit whose mission is to attract, promote, and cultivate film, video, and commercial production in the area. So we're excited to share with you what we've been working on and how that landscape has changed as well.
Margaret, you're muted right now.
There we go. Sorry. Modern technology. It's so tough. Let's hear from our friend Greg Newberry, who is an experienced film writer, producer, and also a longtime force in the local advertising business.
Hi, Margaret. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. My background is I have two kind of boutique ad agencies in town, which is kind of my day job. But I'm a writer, both of copy, of screenplays, of plays. I'm a director of both commercials, plays, and film. A producer of all of the above. So everything that we do is kind of starts off with a blank page, and we follow it all the way through to final completion. I did a play last September of 2019 at Memorial Hall that went on to be nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, that we then turned into a feature film that we shot about this time last year during the height of the pandemic. And now I'm in the throes of selling that film. So I'm kind of right in the middle of the changing landscape, and it really has changed and it's different. So this will be fun.
And it keeps you on your toes, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
And next, let's hear our introduction to Ted Weil. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Ted? Who's with the Falcon Theater, one of the more exciting local theaters in Northern Kentucky.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I am Ted Weil. I'm the producing artistic director at Falcon Theater. We are Greater Cincinnati's only professional storefront theater company, and we're just looking forward to opening our doors again really soon.
You and several other people, I think. I'm gonna give you all a question, actually two questions that you can think about a little bit, and we'll kind of go around and give everybody a chance to answer. And we'll start with you, Ted. Number one, what is the biggest, most important lesson that you learned from the terrible, horrible, rotten year and change that we just got through? And question number two is going to be, what's the most important thing globally in your what you're doing here that you are looking forward to make it happen?
So I think
that's not too much.
No, that's a small question. I think the most important thing that we've learned, that all of us have learned, is agility is key. We all have to be flexible, and I think that if there's anything good to come out of this past horrible year, it's that we've all had to explore new techniques, new ways of being creative, new ways of connecting with each other, and hopefully we'll be able to take what we've learned through this time and apply it to life when we get back to normal. I think there are a lot of things that we've discovered just in our working methodology that will benefit us in the long run. So, we're going to try to make a little lemonade out of the 2020 lemon and see what we can do with it. So, yeah, that's, I think, the biggest.
Can you give us one example of something that you're going to do differently now?
Well, we certainly have learned a lot about video that we never knew before. We're a live theater company. And so the idea that we can do more with film, we've developed, excuse me, some skills in creating some film pieces throughout this time. So I see that becoming, not that we're going to turn into a film company by any stretch, but the ability to add filmic elements to our live stage productions, I think, gives us an entirely new, venue to work with things. So, where before we would have to say, well, how can we even get this done? Who can we contact? Who can we hire? How do we bring in a film company? And now we're kind of discovering that on a small scale, we really can do some things ourselves. We've spent a year teaching ourselves and learning how to do a lot of editing and work with cameras and learning about audio and all the things that are different about film from live stage work. So I think a lot of that'll come into play. Don't know when, but every tool is something in the grab bag. So we'll be looking forward to opportunities to use that.
Thank you, Ted. That was interesting to hear. I'm going to jump from you now to Kristen. because you deal with established production companies for the most part that are coming from outside, coming here to use local cast and crew, of course, but especially local locations, because we have such a beautiful area here for filming. How would you answer those two same questions? What was the biggest takeaway that you got from having to cope with the past year? And what are you looking forward to now?
Well, I think the first thing that stuck out, as you initiated the question, is that, community has never been more important. And by that, I mean, it took the pandemic to sort of bridge the gap between the commercial industry and the television industry and the film industry, and both the union and the non-union industries. And we were all sort of, standing there with, how can we help each other? And, it was for better, for worse, it was one of the most enlightening times for us all to get to know each other, to know what each of our roles are in the community. And we found ourselves on these regular Zooms and helping each other, whether it was the unemployment application or who qualifies for this PPP or SBA and things like that. And getting, the contacts that Film Cincinnati had and sharing those with crew that are out of work. And the other thing that community stands out to me is that, everyone was out of physical production work. And we ended up just starting to raise money, not to keep the nonprofit open, but to help the freelancers that were out of work. And we raised about $35,000 to just buy Kroger gift cards for people. And the funniest thing about that is no one believed us when we called them and wanted to send them the gift card. They thought it was a scam or a sham. But it was another way that we brought the community together. And that's just one of the things that stands out to me the most. And one of the things I'll take away from this pandemic moving forward is just the importance of community. Professionally and where the landscape is changing. And one of the things I'd like to see us move into is, content is king right now. And there is more production happening than ever before the pandemic. And you can't find enough people to work on productions. You can't support the amount of production. So where I see us going is, why not Kentucky and Ohio? Why can't we benefit from all of this content that's going to be going into production? And in order to do so, I have to raise the tax credits. And Kentucky is now starting to reinstate their motion picture tax credit in 2022 in January. So that will be a huge play. And we are getting ready to work with a very well-known film company to launch that incentive in Kentucky. And Ohio is now considering taking their tax credit from 40 million to 140 million a year. And so, I mean, both of those collectively, and what that means for our region is having two strong tax credits on both sides of the river that are supporting that community, I think will be really powerful. And I don't see any reason why we can't be a leader for a world-class destination for all things production. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Thanks, Kristen. Michael Hatton, let's pick up something that Kristen mentioned here, that, and I've heard this from other producers, that they're running out of help. And I don't know if it's because there's suddenly so much pent up demand of things that were put off that are being produced now, or because we lost people who left town or started other careers, but certainly the schools like NKU in particular, in a lot of cases, are important sources of the staffing up of the crews that are needed to do both stage and film work. So what are you looking at that? Have you heard about that? Are you hearing about it from your graduates? What can you tell us about that?
Well, absolutely. And, one of the things that, even as a program itself in producing the the 8 productions that we had this year that were filmed, not all of our majors were able to come to campus. Many of them opted to have remote learning, and so we weren't able to involve them on production as crew members, as actors, as designers, what have you. And so that in and of itself, just kind of in the micro level of our program, this idea of workflow and workforce was something that we had to overcome. But, one of the great things that has come out of this is that because our students have been able to collaborate across campus with Norse media and electronic media broadcasting majors, they've been able to learn all of these new skills that previously had not necessarily been a part of our curriculum. And so a lot of our students have found this love of film and television work. And so we're hoping that this is going to continue in the future to work across campus and to provide more skill set for our majors. So when they graduate, they can work in multiple different venues and forms of entertainment. So we really want to make sure that the students are capable of going on and pursuing a wide variety of different career paths. So this is one of the things that we really want to ramp up, and so that we can support the local production work that already takes place in Cincinnati, but that will hopefully continue based on the work of Kristen and all of our wonderful colleagues in the greater Cincinnati area. So I'm very, very excited about what this is going to mean for our students, not only at NKU, but also at CCM and Xavier and Miami, Thomas More. I think this is going to be the start of something really quite lovely.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. Let's go to Greg. Now, Greg, you have quite a lot of experience in stage shows. You've written plays and produced plays. You have a long history in filmmaking, short films, full and feature films, and a long history in commercial production. So you, I know already, draw talent wherever you can find it. You will take a stage actor and put them in a movie, or vice versa. Your crews or whoever can do the work, whoever you like to do the work. Do you see that changing? Not just for you, but generally, are you seeing more people who are comfortable crossing those barriers, what used to be barriers?
Yeah, it's funny you said talent, because I always think of myself that I'm in the talent business, because that's just a constant, renewal of talent, finding new people and finding out what they can do, whether it's on the production end of thing or acting or whatever, writers, the whole gamut. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think it just creates more. There's more opportunities being created, so people have more opportunities to kind of try different things. And I think there's something that's really rewarding about our area, and that it's a very kind of communal experience in the production community. I was talking to somebody the other day who's moving here from LA, and I said, you just need to get on a couple of sets. Once you're there, then people get to know you, and you wind up on, it's just a very communal thing, because everybody's in the talent business and everybody's looking for somebody who can do something really well. So this last year for me, it was very rewarding in that I got to work with a lot of younger people that I would have never worked with before and see what they could do. And so you see those little sparks out there, and it's really kind of exciting, to see people. One of to your question of, one of the things that's really rewarding to me right now is my current film. I had a guy, the guy that plays the defense attorney, had not been in theater for like 8 years. I saw him in something 8 years ago, tracking down, got him to be in my play. Then I got him to be in the film. He'd never been in front of a camera before. And the response out in LA is like, who is this guy? This is like Sterling Brown, only he's more handsome. I mean, which is, it's mind-boggling. And the guy's never been on film before, and he's killing it. So it's just really exciting to see stuff like that happen. Another guy, he had done he did one little Christmas movie before he did mine. He was in the play. He was a theater guy. He showed up for his Christmas movie. He was hired to be driver number 2, and they made him the lead the first day he was on set. And then so I was his second film, and now he's being compared to Jack Nicholson and Philip Seymour Hoffman. I use a cross between, I mean, which is crazy, you know. So, and it's not here. It's like out in LA, people talking about them like that. So it's really exciting. And so there's tons of opportunities, and it's really exciting to see people have those opportunities and jump in there and do it.
That's wonderful. You know, Michael, let me go back to you for a second, because I kind of left you out of that question about the horrible bad year. And now you talked about having discovered this, you know, the flexibility, fluidity, let's say, in preparation. Was there anything else about that experience that you think is going to change things for the way you do what you do?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, one of the things that you asked us was what was kind of the biggest epiphany that we had, and I think for us in our program it was accessibility. You know, we've always thought about accessibility in terms of the physical space and patrons coming to our campus and to our theaters, but now we started to think a little more globally in terms of patrons who want to support our productions, who want to see their family members, or who are just interested in the work that we're doing. And this has given us an opportunity to share our content with a much larger, wider audience. And, you know, there are individuals who can't physically make it to the theater there for whatever reason it might be. And, you know, and I know it's a very simplistic, oh yeah, idea, but, you know, it's wonderful to kind of think ahead and going forward for not only my program in theater and dance, but also music and visual art, of how can we make our students' excellent work more accessible to audience members, not only in the tri-state, but across the country. So I think that's one of the things that I'm most excited about in terms of looking forward. Is how can we reach those bigger audiences? And I think all arts organizations are trying to do that. How can we reach new audiences? How can we get them engaged with our brand or the work that we're doing? And I think in conjunction with that flexibility, that fluidity, and also the partnership that we have developed with our colleagues across campus is going to allow us to develop new curriculum to better prepare our students for all of these incredible new opportunities that are becoming available to them. So those, to me, are the two biggest exciting things thinking about this this new future that we all have. Is number one, we can get better at what we're doing and how we're teaching our students, but also two, how do we make our art and art in general more available to patrons? So I'm very excited, and you know, we've taken a lot of great steps this year in terms of investing in technology and resources and making connections and partnerships. And we're also investing in our spaces with infrastructure, and moving forward, we don't want us to go back to normal, you know, back to the way it was before. We can't do that. That is a waste of the last, you know, 14, 15 months. We've got to keep moving forward and use this as a impetus for growth and continued success and access.
Thank you. That's very interesting stuff. It makes me the topic of expanding accessibility, especially for stage productions. I'm going to come back to Ted for this. Have you explored, you mentioned using video in your productions. It's my understanding that there are all kinds of legal hurdles against using video to broadcast your productions, that there's rights and copyrights and broadcast rights and contracts and all kinds of things that make that difficult to do. Are you and your colleagues looking at that as a subject that needs to be addressed in the law, perhaps? Or are there ways that you can do things now to expand the accessibility in the way that Michael talked about?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities, and you're right. It becomes a very sticky situation when you start to deal with unions and everything else, because you are sort of spanning two different unions between SAG and Equity when you're in that world. But even just the rights for a production can be tricky as well. The one thing I will say is that several of the major rights leasers of plays, Dramatists and Samuel French, now Concord Theatricals, they pivoted very quickly when all of this started, and very quickly found ways to make it accessible for theaters to live stream work. And I think that was really important, and to their credit, that they really jumped on board with that to try to make this as feasible as possible. But it certainly does open up, the question of affordability. If we were to both do a show live on the stage and also stream it in order to increase accessibility, we'd be doubling our cost effectively, or more potentially, to get the show out through both venues. So it does become a question of, well, what is affordable and what makes the most sense. So there are a lot of questions left to be answered in that world. But something Michael said about accessibility too, I think does also bring up some very simple possibilities that within the theater, now that we have some more ability to record some things, it does give us the ability to archive some of our work, to potentially offer that to actors for demo reels if they need that. Those types of short clips are pretty easy to get licensed for individual use, not for broadcast. So those kinds of capabilities, I think, will be a huge benefit to artists, being able to take some of that and not just sit out in the audience when you're not on stage and shoot something with your phone, and now they'll have something a little bit better that they can use, I think, after the fact, and that'll help. So.
Oh, that's interesting. That'll be interesting to see how it plays out here and nationwide, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's or globally. I mean, it's one of those huge network questions that, are things going to change, or is everybody going to revert? I mean, is Samuel French going to continue to allow theaters to broadcast or to live stream productions?
Yeah, and it's a big question, and a lot of it, I think, too, also falls to the writers, because we did 3 shows that we did as Theater for Film projects, and 2 of them we were able to get the rights very quickly. One, because we were in direct contact with the playwright, and he was eager to get his work out. One that came through Dramatists very quickly, and the other that took us several months of Concord Theatricals going back to the author and back to the author and back to the author, waiting for an answer as to whether or not he would let us do this. So there still is some uncertainty about it, and maybe Greg can talk a little as an author, how you feel about the different, the balance between stage and film, and how that feels to you. Why some people would be excited about it and others less so. But there's still, I think, a pretty broad swath of opinion on that.
Well, that's a good suggestion, Greg. Why don't you address that? Since you have numerous movie scripts, you have numerous stage scripts, you've dealt with, as in your last production, you did it in both venues. So
right.
If you could be the emperor of rights, what would you do? How would you rework the system?
I think that's way beyond my pay grade, Margaret. Well, I think rights are there for a reason, and it's to protect the artists. And I think the things that we have to be careful of going forward. I'll just give you a conversation I had the other day, and what's happening in film is very similar to what happened in music back when not Spotify, but Napster came along. So Napster comes along, starts gobbling up all this music, makes it available on the internet for free. Artists don't get any money out of it. iTunes comes along and says, hey, we'll solve the problem. We'll put it on iTunes and we'll give you $1 a song. So they start to salvage the music industry. Now you have Spotify that's coming out. So they're taking music, they're making it available to millions of people to download. The artist makes like, $30 on it. So eventually what's going to happen is, people will always create, but you'll be going, what's the point? And I'm kind of experienced that myself just because I'm older. I'm like, I know what's all involved in all the steps, and you kind of go, I know I go from here to here to here, and that's a long slog of a haul. And what's the point? What do I get out of it? So to go back to my, the film thing, this guy just told me the other day, he said, Netflix has come along. They've kind of at first saved filmmaking by making it available, and now they're in the process of destroying it. So, that's what's going on. So you're going to see things becoming available on, there's like a ton of platforms now that you could show your films, or you could put your plays on if they're video. But you're at the mercy of the platform person, and you're only getting paid what they want to pay you.
Right.
So, if you want to protect the artists, I think it's very important just to be aware of what your rights are and to maintain as much as you can of those. But at the same time, it's also, for instance, I had a couple of people in my play or in the film who were SAG, and SAG was shut down, and they weren't even supposed to be working, but they said they read the script and go, screw it, I want to do this. So, I had to come up with a mechanism to protect them by making them part of the film. So they're basically working for themselves as opposed to working for a production entity. So there are ways around things, but, I tend to err on the side of protecting everybody's rights, because people are out there just trying to gobble them up, and it's going to be terrible if we don't do that.
Kristen, have you seen any change in the way that the companies that you deal with, that you go out to recruit to come here, in the way that they think about things like how are we going to finance and how are we going to make money? It's the sort of making money side that's changed for the filmmakers. It used to be, as Greg pointed out, you'd own the film throughout its life, basically, or for most of its life, until you sold it outright to someone. And the streamers, or Netflix in particular, have kind of flipped that. They buy it outright right away. So as soon as they have it, the artist stops making, the owner, the creator, they don't get royalties. They take their flat fee and go. Is that having any effect that you see in the way that films are going to be produced, in the way people are looking at what's coming down the road?
I've seen it both ways. I'm working with a film company right now that is an independent film company, but it's a very large feature film, but they want to keep their powder dry all the way through completion because there are so many streaming platforms. And so they want to sell the package at the end as a whole. So, it is huge names, but it's an independent, unbonded film. And so that's unique, that's, to your point, that is unique. But my gosh, they're spending so much money right now. I mean, I have more scripts in-house than we've ever had. And I don't really have to market right now. I have to say no to people. What we're doing is turning work away. And so it's our job to let the state of Kentucky and the state of Ohio know, this is your money to lose. I'm walking projects to Atlanta, to Savannah, Georgia, because we don't have enough tax credits. And then to that, I'm also landing stuff without tax credits, because sometimes they don't want to be dictated by state borders and they want to have the flexibility and the fluidity to shoot all over. But I've never seen this amount of content out there, and you can't, and there's just not enough crews to keep up. But I'm encouraged that if it starts out like this, I think it'll hold on for a bit. I mean, there's going to be some stagnant water eventually, but right now, I mean, it's exciting for all these young people that are getting out, that there's so many jobs and they're getting better jobs quicker, which is really exciting. But I don't know if that answers your question. I've seen both. So that's sort of what the industry has been showing me.
So, well, this flood of interest in production right now, do you think that's pent up demand? Are these productions that people just had to sit on for a year because of the lockdown, or
Yes.
is it some sort
I
of?
think a lot of that, a lot of things either halted production or never went into production, and now the floodgates are open. And, and the COVID piece of it all is playing out in real time. It changes every day in our production meetings. But, we have a 90-page union document of how to have COVID compliance. And we were, to Chris Strobel's point about talking about masks earlier. I mean, I've been in a car all week with Amazon, and we have to have a row between the two people. There can only be two people in a car. We're fully vaccinated and masked, but that's the way Amazon's operating, and they're not lifting any restrictions anytime soon. And we were tested every morning before we got in the van. So, that piece of it also costs money. And I think there's a lot of money being invested in that right now, but I do think it's the floodgates. I think everyone had halted production on everything physically, but development never stopped. And so as those pieces got developed, once the world started to open up a bit, it got really, really busy.
Huh. That's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Let me ask you one other question right now. You mentioned a couple of times, and I've heard this from other people, that it's hard to crew up, that there's not enough people available to fill all the crew spots that are out there. Is that all crew spots, or are there particular areas that are hurting?
For our particular region, there are areas where we're really strong and areas where we're not have as many people trained. But across the board, if you're looking globally, it's every position. You'll get a call. I was texting with a producer in New York, and I said, "Do you have any production office people? We're out of them right now." He's like, "I will pay you if you can find one," because we can't find them anywhere. So it's been the same across the board. But I also feel like people are willing to take more risks on people. And so they might not have a vast resume, or they might not have a lot of experience, but if they have the right personality and they're interviewing well and they're responsive and they're resourceful, then they're taking risks on people sooner, which I like to see, because in a market like this, we want to get more people trained up quickly.
All right, I'm gonna break our plan a little bit and ask Chris Strobel to hop in here, because to talk about a little bit. Chris, are you still with us? I know you are.
Hello.
Are you there? Yes. Hi, I'm going to ask you, Chris, to speak about that point briefly, because the Electronic Media and Broadcasting School is an important source of people to fill those jobs that everyone is trying to fill. Have you heard this? Have you had people coming to the school saying, "Who have you got? I can pluck right now," or, "We need help"?
Tracy Songer is a person who handles our internships, and we have she feels like she's trafficking in personnel at times, that she's trying to fill all the internships that are happening right now. And then, from a program point of view, we've been very fortunate, as has, there's programs at Xavier and UC that are very strong as well. And that we're able to get folks out sometimes, early in their academic careers, freshman, sophomore, doing basic PA work, and then hopefully, and usually, while they're still in college, they're able to work a little bit more on set, and then hopefully be prepared then. I mean, that's the goal, to be prepared to either move into the crew roles, or start heading up some productions, and do small production companies. It's been good. I anticipate it'll continue to be better. I know that we've worked with Ted and Falcon, and we've worked with Soda, and a number of folks have gone over to the Film Cincinnati and helped Greg with some of his projects too. So I guess you can kind of see a nexus of where we've been involved with this panel. But I hope that everybody would say that that our students are prepared to make an impact once they graduate.
I'm going to throw the same question to you, Michael. Are you seeing some of this effect among the theater people? Are their productions coming to you going, "We need more help"? Did we lose? Oh, Michael?
Well, Yes. It's been interesting. I have gotten so many more phone calls and emails, not only looking for, technicians who can assist on PA responsibilities, wardrobe, or whatever it might be, but also there have been so many more people who have started projects looking for on-screen, on camera talent, which has been exciting as well too. So trying to find and take advantage of these new connections has been really great. As Chris had mentioned a moment ago, we have students who in our program who got to learn and work side by side with some of his students to pick up these additional skills. And so now we actually had quite an influx of our students picking up an EMB minor this year, which was pretty exciting because it's only going to continue to develop their skill set and help them to move on. So the same thing too with some of Chris's students who are producing or directing pieces. It's been great to send a lot of our students over to them to audition for those directors. And yeah, I don't see it stopping anytime soon. I think this is going to continue. So this is really great for, again, the entire greater Cincinnati area. I think we're all going to benefit from this.
This is really interesting. Let's talk, Ted, tell us a little bit, are you seeing effects like this in legitimate theater, as they used to call it, on the stage side? Is it hard to find people? Is it hard to find tech crews? Is it hard to find casts, the casts that you need? Are you running into any kind of shortage in that way, or are things still pretty much as they were?
I would say there's a little bit of yes and no. I think that, there has always been a shortage of tech people in this area for stage. We're always looking for good tech people who have got some good training. It's one of the reasons we have worked with NKY so much. We know they have great students with good talent, and we want to give them opportunities to do some work. It benefits us, and I think hopefully they get some good benefit out of it as well, being able to work out in a professional theater environment. From a talent standpoint, it really is interesting. I'm going to be very curious to see how all the first sets of auditions start to go for live things, for live theaters that are going to be opening this fall. I think people are just chomping at the bit to get out there and start working again. They're excited to work. They want to do things. But the question is how many of them are still active and how many of them are going to be right there when we need them. And that's an unknown right now. I think there have been times when we've struggled to find certain physical types, certain people for certain roles, and had just a huge influx of people for other roles. And I really don't see that changing a lot over time either. And I think that will always sort of be the case that live theater struggles with. It's like all of these businesses, it's very hard to make a living. And so, people will sometimes drift away from it once they end up with that day job and get used to that steady paycheck. So, you always have a higher concentration of younger people out there auditioning for things than you do older actors who are trying to work. So, again, I don't really see that changing, but it'll be very interesting to see what the landscape looks like for the first few auditions as people are coming back. I think a lot of people are going to want to come back and come back quickly. I think actors are just dying to get their faces back out there. Just like we as theaters are dying to get our material back out there in front of audiences, I think actors are dying to get themselves back out there in front of production companies.
Well, this, I'm going to start with, I'm going to let you keep going, Ted, because one of the things I want to talk about, and I know this is a big issue always in the theater, is money, financing, getting benefactors, getting sponsors, getting customers, getting season ticket holders is just, it's a never ending grind. Do you see that? Has that changed as you're starting to go back to, we're going to have a real season again?
It certainly has been interesting this past year. We have definitely seen a willingness of people to help. We've seen more small individual donations throughout the course of this past year than we've ever seen before. People want to toss 5, 10, 20, whatever dollars at the arts because they, they believe in it and they want it to be out there. So that's really, really encouraging. The flip side of that is we've also seen some larger donors scale back for very obvious reasons, as well as grants, that we would all chase. A lot of those have pivoted over the last year and either focused their money on other things, and we hope they'll come back to the arts, or just scale back what they're doing, possibly because they don't have as much money to give. So the landscape has changed some, but I'm very, very encouraged by the amount of support we're seeing, just from people who really believe in the arts and want to make sure that there are arts to go back to when the doors open again. So that's a wonderful thing.
Well, Kristen, I'm going to throw the question to you too, because as a nonprofit, Film Cincinnati also depends on donors. How's that been going for you?
Well,
the plague year.
To echo what Ted was saying, a lot of the people and grants and foundations that have supported us in the past, had to change their giving during the pandemic. And a lot of it, if you weren't housing people or feeding people directly related to the pandemic, then they could not, support this. So, raising money has been a challenge, but I'm hoping once we expose just how much work is coming in, that we can shed new light on our efforts. I mean, it's never easy. And, Greg can attest to this. We've pounded the pavement for decades trying to raise money for, more production in town. And I don't think it's ever going to be an easy ask. It's never easy. Just like the tax incentive is never a sure thing. That's what we do. We have to continue to raise money and raise awareness, and that will never stop. But I'm encouraged. I feel like the amount of work coming in and the spotlight that'll be back on the region, then people will see that this investment is worthwhile, and we'll see giving come, because that's the other thing about this community. People care about the arts. They care about philanthropy here, and we're blessed with people in the region that want to give to theater and film. So hopefully we'll see more of it.
Greg, I'm going to come to you with the question of, what about people who want to invest in film and stage? They're much harder to find, is my understanding. I've never had to raise that money for that reason, so I don't really know. But from what I hear, it's a tough row to get out there and dig up people who will actually invest in your production,
Right.
Whether it's on stage or on film.
Well, so I'll talk primarily about film, because stage, I just did it myself, and I just didn't have the patience to do. It was like something I could do, and I did it. So whatever, but on the film front, I know years ago, I spent 3 years of my life trying to put together a $10 million angel fund in Cincinnati to fund independent film production. Got some people on board, but could never get anybody to pull the trigger on anything. So it was very discouraging. And now I just got to, honestly, now I really wouldn't know. And so I know, I know how to, and I've tried to get my own films financed. So I know the process of putting, these things together to raise money, and have done it. And I used to know it forward and backward on the independent film front. But today, that has changed so much. Like, I wouldn't even know where to begin to put a package together to go to an investor and say, this, whatever, $5 million film or $10 million independent film, here's how it's going to pay you back. Because that, like, for instance, the pandemic, took theatrical releases right out of the picture. So the main source of income for films, which was the theatrical release for everybody, the magnet that then generated all the revenue down the line, disappeared. So there's this old model that's no longer there. So that's going to come back, but it's going to come back slowly, and it's going to come back really through Hollywood and the major productions. So on the independent film front, I really wouldn't know what to tell anybody. You can't say, here's an example. I just had, a conversation recently. A guy said, you go to Netflix, they're going to say, who's in your movie? What's the genre? They plug it into an algorithm and I go, this is what we'll pay you for it. I mean, it has nothing to do with anything. They don't read the script. They don't watch the movie. It's like, boom, boom, boom. You know, here's what our algorithm says. So I don't know how you present that to an investor. You know, here's how we load our algorithms for the streamers out there. So that part of the business is so much in flux right now. I couldn't honestly go to somebody and say, hey, if you gave me $3 million, it'll translate to whatever, or we'll sell it. Distributors. So that part of the equation. So you have the studios funding films, and then you have independent distributors who their big thing was, we'll acquire a film on the independent front. We'll acquire a film at a film festival because it's going to generate a buzz. And then we know what that'll do. And we can take that to theaters. Again, the film festival thing trashed. So that's off the picture now. So you really don't know at this point in time how to, I wouldn't know how to approach somebody to say, hey, give me some money and, we'll turn it into something for you. Now I know some guys who, to Kristen's into the business on the whole tax incentive front and tax credit front, there are ways to finance a film with tax credits. And I know some guys who are doing this where they have, they've got so many tax credits lined up and then so many offsetting payments from a distributor saying, we'll give you X amount of dollars if this person's in your film, that they can almost put it together that way. But that they're working in different, they're just working in a different environment than going to like individual investors in Cincinnati or something like that. It would be a tough sell. And my concern on the theater front here is, I'm concerned about attrition. We've had the supportive theater and the arts in general has been an older generation. It's been part of our tradition in Cincinnati. And I just don't know what's going on to reach out to a younger generation to say, hey, this is really important. You need to step up and be a sponsor for this. I don't know what's going on there, but that conversation's got to be taking place. And people have got to be trying to figure out how to get, the younger people who are making some money to go, you know what, I'm going to support whatever. I'm going to support Falcon Theater. I'm going to support the Ensemble Theater, whatever it is, but I'm going to cough some money up just because it's the right thing to do. And I enjoy theater. So I'm not sure what's going on in that field, but I'm concerned about just attrition, older people dying off, and that tradition dying out, and what are we left with?
Well, let me bring Michael in on this question. Is this issue of, we know that you're turning out wonderful, you're muted. You're turning out artists and people who can make theater. Are you also seeing the enthusiasm for becoming theater patrons and theater sponsors in the same generation? When you put on a production at NKU, do you get other students in there in large numbers, or is it mostly moms and dads and grandparents and other kids in the class?
This is such an excellent and important question, Margaret, and thank you, Greg, for bringing this up. I attended, there was a wonderful arts organization kind of powwow meeting a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, that was hosted by the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, and they were talking about, the very real, the reality that if I remember correctly, what the artistic director said, he said within 50 years, if we don't do something, the CSO will cease to exist. If we do not start to develop new audiences who will come to our performances, who will become supporters and patrons and future donors to the organization, the CSO will cease to exist. And by extension, that's true for all of us, right? That we all run the risk of shutting down if we're not actively engaged in the development of a new generation of arts supporting and arts enjoying patrons. And so one of the interesting things that he spoke about was, when look at where we are at geographically as an arts organization, are the people who live within walking distance to our venue, are they the ones who are in our audience watching our performances? If they do come to see one of our performances, do they see people like themselves up on stage performing, playing, singing, acting, whatever it might be? If not, then we're not doing what we need to do as artists. And it was a really kind of beautiful, moving statement that he was making about the necessary efforts to go into arts education and to specifically engage with young individuals who to get them excited about dance or theater or music, whatever it might be. And so I'm really excited and hopeful that, one of the things that this last year has made painfully clear and obvious to all of us is just how much we rely on content. Thinking about the music that people have been continuing to enjoy, the amount of access to Netflix and Hulu and all of that, all of this other amazing content that's being generated on YouTube, and people who are finding their voices in so many different platforms. Someone has to create that, and in our culture, of course, you're an artist, you're going to live in your parents' basement until you're, until you're 50 or whatever it is. It's so sad that we have this disconnect as a culture where, we don't value artists and a career or an education in the arts, but yet we will consume your craft. We will consume your content voraciously, right? We will stream it. We will binge it. We will do whatever it is. And so what I'm hopeful is that this last year has brought about more appreciation for the content that we consume on a daily basis that have to be created. There was a wonderful meme floating around the last couple of weeks, which was showing, the most useless majors and careers. And of course, number one is, people who are in the arts. And the next panel of the comic was the graphic designer who is an artist who was hired to draw that graphic, and so, yeah, exactly. Right. So, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to do exactly what we've all been talking about tonight, is finding ways to, again, get our content out there, to make it accessible, but to be engaged in creating those new audiences. Greg is absolutely right. We've got to remind, the younger patrons, the younger members of our community, that if you enjoy this, there is a price to it. I think of the NPR, fundraising spots. They're saying, if you value this, then it's worth making your investment. It's worth that, however much in money investment every month. So I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful that this has made people a lot more aware of how much they ingest and use the arts, film, television, music, all of the above, and hopefully that will pay dividends.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to let Ted address the same issue from the point of view of the working theater. Your audiences pretty well, I believe. Are you seeing new faces over, the course of 2 or 3 years, or is it, as they say, it's all the graybeards coming out to see the theater? Are you doing anything in particular to develop new audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's such a good question, and such an age-old question. I mean, I think ever since the golden age of Hollywood, theater has been dying, right? But it's not dead, and it hasn't died. And from what I see, it doesn't show any signs of really dying either. There are more theaters in Greater Cincinnati than there have ever been before, and that's incredibly encouraging. Now, certainly there are times when we play to small houses that are disappointing, but I think that you know, audiences are regenerating. And, you know, I've been saying exactly what you said for years and years, that, you know, audiences are dying off. Greg, you're right. We have to cultivate that young audience. But I think the truth is that they are showing up. That young audience is showing up. You may not see them right away at, you know, Playhouse in the Park, where tickets are very expensive, you know, and you have to have a decent amount of cash to just buy a ticket. But you are seeing them showing up at the Cincinnati Fringe Festival, at Falcon, at No, at some of the smaller theaters, because they want to get out and do things. And I think that, you know, programs like NKU and CCM that are encouraging not only their own students in the arts, but also the whole campus to come and participate in the arts are instrumental in that. I think that, you know, that is the future. You know, every single person who takes a theater appreciation course and really gets something out of it will eventually go back and see a play someday. They may not become a season ticket holder. They may not, you know, be a huge donor, but sooner or later they'll show up in your audience. And, you know, so that cultivation is really important. And I think too that, you know, the sad reality is, you know, Michael, you know, a lot of your students, as much as they want a career in the arts, may not end up with that career in the arts. They may end up with a career in something tangential or even a different field altogether. And while that's not their goal right now, and they don't want to hear that, they'll have great lives, but they will always be huge supporters of the arts because of that exposure, because they have a true passion for it and a belief for it. And some of their contribution may be as audience members in the future, you know, as they get into the reality of you know, supporting a family and developing a life that may not be as supportive of a theater lifestyle. You know, those folks are the future as well. So, you know, I think there's a lot of truth there. We definitely see a lot of new people coming through our doors. We have people who are new to our theater in every single production we do, and that's very encouraging to see. I think a good portion of that is because we do try to do a variety of work. We try to do things that are interesting and different and new and fresh, and we don't rest on a lot of the old standards, you know, which is where you tend to see older audiences investing their money. So I think, you know, trying to keep our work a little more challenging and exciting, just from a standpoint of having something new to offer. I think that attracts some new audiences. But it is a challenge. I mean, it has always been a challenge. It will always be a challenge. When I can sit at home on my couch and stream Netflix for $10 a month and don't have to pay anything and can see whatever I want to see anytime, you know, that inertia factor of getting up off the couch and going to the theater, you know, that'll always be a challenge. But I think there will always be people who want to do it. I mean, theater has been an art form since the first people gathered around a cook fire and told stories, and it will continue to be here because it is so immersive. You know, I love movies, I love film, but going to a theater is a different kind of experience, similar, tangential, supportive, but I think they're unique. And once somebody sits in a dark theater and watches a live play and gets that experience, if they get bitten by that bug, they'll never go away. It is a very passionate thing and a very immersive experience that people want to have again and again.
That's a very good point. Certainly was my experience. Though I'm old enough now, so I'm in that graybeard category. So I hate to project my feelings about it on others, but everybody go see a play. Meanwhile, an audience member has brought up the issue of diversity. We've touched on this, Ted, when you were talking about access for people. Chris, I'm going to put it to you. Are you seeing a diverse crew base, for instance, walking in the door? I know you keep files of people who are qualified actor, like union actors, or people who have been extras before, things like that. Are the people that you work with able to find the diversity that they want to see at auditions and crew calls?
I mean, absolutely not enough. And I think there's a strategic effort to diversify not just our workforce behind the camera, but also in front of the camera. I know that Film Cincinnati has been writing grants to strictly for that initiative so that we can help diversify the crew base and put on workshops that are geared towards well, many different things, but there's a world-renowned hair person called Camille Friend who wants to just specify in wigs and ethnic hair, and she wants to do that and come in to some of our salons and neighborhoods so that we can train people and that there are people then qualified, because it's the first question now, you know, when starting to hire, you know, how diverse is your crew base? How diverse is your talent pool? And we want to be able to answer that, not just with a smart answer and thoughtfully, you know, have good numbers and know, but also how can we work to strive to do that better? And I think everyone's experiencing that, whether it's in theater or film or any kind of production, you know, particularly after this year. I mean, we all need to do better and we all want to do better. I can't speak for everyone, but I know that the industry wants to do better.
Michael, maybe you can touch on that too. What are you seeing in the talent pool among students, or the range of students that are coming into your program?
Yeah, to echo what Kristen was saying is we are seeing greater diversity, but not nearly as much, and not nearly as much as we would love to have. And we are taking very tangible steps to do that. And part of that, you know, again, referring back to the CSO that I was mentioning earlier, is part of that is making sure that that people who are in our audiences are able to see themselves and to hear their stories told on stage. And sometimes that can be difficult because, you know, okay, we want to do this musical or this play, but we may not have the student base in order to fully cast those productions. So it's always a struggle to try and get to where we want to be in terms of that diversity. But the most important thing, of course, to echo what Kristen was saying, is that we have to keep moving forward. We have to keep bringing in guest artists. We have to keep supporting our underrepresented minority playwriting students or designers. Anything that we can do to further reflect the community in which we are living and working is going to be such an important thing. And you know, I think the university at NKU and a lot of our regional schools across the country as well are taking a very hard look at what barriers have been put into place, particularly in the arts, which have unfortunately discouraged non-white students from studying theater, for pursuing the arts, dance, music, visual art, whatever it might be. How do we break down those barriers? How do we truly put ideas into action, not just pay lip service to these ideas? And you know, it's a very important but difficult process. And you know, I can't wait until we can get to a point where our program is as diverse as the community in Cincinnati is. That is something that is very important to me as a goal for our program and for our university as a whole. But yes, we've got to do more. We've got to continue to make our spaces, our theaters, our companies, our production companies, whatever it might be, welcoming and open, so that we are continuing to build the community in that way.
Greg, I know that you work with diverse crews pretty much all the time, and your cast, certainly for your last production, Amos Otis, was quite diverse. What about your audiences? What about the people who bought tickets to come see that play? Was it a diverse audience, do you think?
No, I wouldn't say it was a diverse, well, no, I wouldn't say it was a diverse audience. The diversity of the audience came from people from, you know, the actors, friends, and, you know, they would come see the play, you know. But no, and honestly, it's kind of it's a puzzle for me, because I was very I actually wrote it, you know, I wrote it to have diversity and cast it that way, and in roles that, like, I had a role with just a bailiff, you know. I was like, I knew I had a Muslim friend, so you're the bailiff, you know. So it was just, put it together that way intentionally. So to give you an example, so then this is kind of goofy, but it kind of goes full circle on the diversity thing. So one of the things I submitted it to was Sundance, who now has a diversity policy, and all of these Chris, you may have run into this too. All these film festivals now have demographic requirements when you submit to your film festival. And basically what I've encountered now is older white guys need not apply. So it's kind of got a different circle on it. I'll just read you a quick thing from Sundance. So Sundance had 14,000 submissions this year. And the people that they accepted 72 features. They highlighted the movies from a diverse group of creators. 50% are female directors, 51% are filmmakers of color, 15% are directors who identify as LGBTQ, and 4% are non-binary. So there's no old white guy in that group at all. So it was weird for me to put this thing together intentionally to be diverse and different and represent America in the best way I could possibly do it. And then run into on the back end the whole diversity requirement thing. So it's kind of I know it needs to be there and it's coming, but it's kind of weird to be on the weird side of that. I get it, but it's just weird. Same thing with the audience; it didn't come. So I don't know what the answer is, other than we got to keep trying. Pushing things out there. And I think from from the part of the equation is. We need to, like what I did with this, I didn't write it. It's not a white play, or it's a diverse play. It's like represents America. And I think more writers have to not necessarily write, I'm going to write the Latino movie or the African-American movie, but I'm going to write this movie, but I have the ability to in my character creation, cast it on the page so that all these people are represented. And I think when we begin to do that more and more, then a lot of this is going to fall aside, because that's going to become the America we see and accept, and it's the norm, as opposed to what we've been dealing with for the past 250 years. So it's just going to take a lot of work.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a good question from the audience, and I'm going to let Ted start. We're going to ask you each to answer it with your own favorite thought on this topic. We know, in spite of the challenges and problems, there are always people who want to get into the business. There are people who want to be on stage. There are people who want to produce shows. There are people who want to make movies. They're in front of or behind the camera. What one piece of advice would you give to those people who are kind of casting around on how to get started?
It can be a tough business to break into, but the best advice is just go out there and do it. If you're nervous about auditioning, just try it. Go stand up in front of a director and audition, or go volunteer. Say, I just want to work on a production. I just want to help. I want to see how the process works. If you don't have any experience at all, just go do it. There is absolutely no substitute in this business for experience and for getting a chance to be in front of people. So, and if you're nervous about auditioning, the best advice I can ever give you that I learned at NKU was the director wants you to be brilliant. They don't want you to be bad. They're cheering for you every step of the way. They want you to be the best thing they've ever seen. So do it, give it a try. And don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Again, that's an amazing way to learn is getting some feedback from directors, casters, people you are able, if you're able to volunteer on a production, just other people working on it. Look for their advice and their guidance, because a lot of them will give it. Sometimes you can't get that. Sometimes it's a big production where you just can't even get in front of the right people, but there's always somebody who's willing to give you some advice. So take it and take it to heart. It's a tough business and you need a thick skin, but if you listen and learn and try to grow, then it's the most rewarding world you will ever live in. So good luck.
Thanks, Ted. I like that. Kristen, what would you say from the point of view of the business, from
be relentless. Just be relentless. And if you're the kind of person that sends one email and then you never hear anything and you give up, then this isn't the right business for you. If you want it, you have to be relentless. And your urgency is not their problem. So you have to find that urgency within you. And I mean, it's the same both in front and behind the camera. And if you're, you've always wanted to be in front of the camera. We're casting 3 motion pictures right now, and Lynn Myers is looking for all kinds of people. And the one advice I've given everybody is to send a real photo. Don't send a glamour shot. This isn't, they're not casting glamour shots, they're casting real people. And they want you to look like real people in the photos. And there's some really exciting projects to participate, both in front and behind. And then the other advice I would just say is be available. A lot of times people say, I'm free Tuesday and Thursday after 3, and that doesn't help a production. But in fact, some of the greatest interns, I wanted to say this earlier, and greatest production assistants have come out of NKU, and we're so grateful for that. My only complaint is they still want to take classes too. I want them full time. But I mean, you just be available, make yourself available, and be responsive the second they reach out to you. But there, and to the other part of the question that, do you have to be a specific age to break into this business? I think this is the most welcoming industries for all ages at any point in your life. And there's a place for everybody.
All right, well, Michael, I'm going to throw that to you since Kristen hit on the intern issue, which is where a lot of people get their first taste of actually working on a production, whether it's film or stage. I know you deal with that all the time.
Absolutely. And, oh gosh, yes. And, there's so many, even students who are studying theater or film or whatever, who are afraid to apply for that internship. I'm like, go do it, go away, do summer stock, go and audition. The advice that Kristen and Ted shared couldn't be more on point. It's exactly what I would say to a student of any age. We have had students, who are 18, and we've had students who are in their 70s come and get a degree at NKU and study theater and film and dance. So absolutely, there's so many resources online in terms of conferences, audition opportunities, the ways to get in touch with the theater companies that are in your area, your region. Go do them, and don't be afraid to reach out and to send that email. If you have a question, you're like, I don't know how to get involved. What about this Southeastern Theater Conference thing? Should I go to it? And maybe you're in you're middle-aged and you're like, I really want to get involved with this. Give me a call, shoot me an email. We have such a wonderful community here in Cincinnati, and just in the arts in general, that don't be afraid to reach out. We all have been at that point in our lives where we needed some advice, and we asked somebody, and we got that information. We're able to move on. This is not a secret club. We are here to help each other and to support one another, because it makes us all stronger and better, and the art that we create is so much better. So yes, to Ted's point, get involved, take that feedback, use it to improve yourself, and then let it go. Don't live with your emotions on your sleeves, right? You've got to continue to grow. You're going to receive 99 no's for every one yes that you get, but that doesn't mean that you should stop. So yes, get involved, contact people, cold call if you have to, and ask those questions and get involved.
Greg, I'll let you wrap this up. You've had lots of experience with newcomers to the business.
This is actually a pet peeve of mine, because I do a lot of, I'll do a lot of things on the community, and many times I'll say, here's my email, here's my card. And it's a group of 30 people, one person will follow up. It's mind-boggling. So I would add to hone your craft, be relentless, and follow up. You got to make that initial, you go to something to network or get to know people, and then you walk away and you don't do anything about it, and or if you do send them something, they say, well, I'm not doing anything right now. It's like, okay, you're not doing anything right now, but I'll check back in a week. There's the back end of that is missing right now, particularly with young people. And it's like, if you can't satisfy my needs right now, then I'm not interested. And it's a weird conundrum to me. I mean, me personally, it's kind of like I demand rejection. I've got that mindset. It's like, I want to hear you say no. You know, I'm going to bug your ass until you tell me no. And you tell me no, then I'll move on to somebody else. But I'll probably come back to you in another month and go, hey, yeah, remember that thing we were talking about? You just have to be relentless at this. Casting is on the talent front, because I can address this from both on the film and doing commercials in town. That the whole audition process has changed ridiculously. So if I'm doing a commercial, sometimes I'm casting for for something, and I'm just going through the talent agency's headshots. I'm going through videos, and I'm doing it over a course of a night. You know, and it's like it's like that. It's fast. The pace of everything has changed. It's not like going in front of a director and giving some big monologue. You know, that's not my world anymore. Where you're looking for somebody particular. You're looking for somebody that has a spark. You get them. And to Ted's point earlier, man, you want that whoever shows up first, you want them to knock you on your butt and go, yay, I got him. You know, we can move on, because casting is really dreadful and it's hard to do, and it's God, it's terrible. It's the worst thing. I hate doing it, but it's absolutely essential, and you got to do it. And man, okay, I can go on forever on this, but yeah, just follow up, be relentless, you know, hone your craft, you know, be eager to learn. And if you show up and do that, I mean, like I said, if you show up on a set, you're eager to learn, you're polite, you treat people right, you're just available, what do you need me to do? You're going to get a lot of work.
Well, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chris Strobel, who's been lurking in the background for all of this. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you to our listeners, to everybody who tuned in to listen or watch or ask questions or think about it. I believe that this will be taped and available to see. Chris, can you answer that question?
Yes, indeed.
There we go. Good.
NKYforum.org.
KYforum.org. Thank you all
NKYforum.org.
very much. And thank you, Mark, for letting us all be part of this today.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you again.